Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my end of September wrap up. I'm going to be talking about the 11 books that I read from the 16th of September to the 30th. So if you want to hear all of my thoughts about the books that I read in the first half of the month, I will definitely link down below my September mid-month wrap up. Most of the books that I'm going to mention in this video are books that I've already mentioned in other videos, but there are a few in this stack that I have not talked about yet on my channel, so I still wanted to do a wrap up anyway. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. I did a complete reading vlog dedicated to this book. For those of you guys that are new to my channel, I have been doing a reading vlog series dedicated to my experience reading the Throne of Glass series for the very first time, and I have absolutely been loving these books. They are just incredible, and this series is quickly becoming one of my all-time favorites. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved the direction that the story was going in. I absolutely just adore the women in this series. They just continue to be such badasses, but I also love the men as well. I just love all of the characters so much, and the ending of this one definitely broke me, so I cannot wait to see what happens in the next book. The next book I read is Smut by Karina Halle. This book centers around Amanda and Blake, and they are taking a writing course in their university, and they essentially have to write a book together even though they really don't like each other. And so I think they end up writing like a mystery thriller together, and it gets a really good grade, and Blake realizes that he really likes writing with Amanda, and he does some research on Amazon and finds out that short, smutty books make a lot of money, especially in like the Kindle ebook industry. So he persuades Amanda to write smutty novels with him, and as you can guess, a romance ensues between the two of them. This book does not have as much smut as you might think. Nothing really happens between Amanda and Blake until probably past the halfway mark, and I think it's only a couple of scenes, so this is definitely kind of more in like the mid-range as far as like the spectrum of smut goes. I overall definitely enjoyed this. I'm giving this 4 stars. I thought it was really well paced. I did like the relationship between Amanda and Blake over the course of the book. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was just a light, fun, and fast-paced read. The next book I want to discuss with you guys is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyan. This is a book that has been so hyped on BookTube. So just to tell you a little bit about the plot, this centers around this girl named Lay, and this is a very interesting Malaysian-inspired fantasy world. There are essentially 3 castes of beings in this world. I'm just gonna read straight from the book of like what each caste is. So there's the Moon caste, which are fully demon with whole animal demon features such as horns, wings, or fur on a humanoid form, and complete demon capabilities. Then under that is the Steel caste, which are humans endowed with partial animal demon qualities, both in physicality and abilities. And then the lowest caste is Paper caste, which are fully human, unadorned with any animal demon features, and incapable of demon abilities such as flight. So Lay is in the Paper caste, which again is the lowest caste, and in this world there is a demon king who is the Moon caste, so he is fully demon, and he basically has this harem of about 8 girls who are Paper caste girls, and I think there's a new group selected every year, and Lay ends up being one of them. I loved how like dark and powerful and just overall beautiful this book was. I feel like there's just nothing like it in the YA fantasy genre. I do want to talk about a couple of gripes that I have with this book. I did end up giving it 4 stars because of these gripes, and then I will get to all of the positive things that I loved about it. I know that this is book 1 of a fantasy series, but for one thing, I just wish we would have been able to see more of this Malaysian-inspired fantasy world. In this first book, Lay is contained within these palace walls, and so really all we know are the different areas of the palace and all of that, but I just wish there would have been a way to see more of this kingdom before Lay showed up at the palace. Now, I have a feeling that all of that is going to be explored in the coming sequels, but to me, this book reads as a standalone. I really have no interest in continuing on with the series, so for that reason, I really just wish that we could have gotten more of the world. And I also feel the same way about the magic system. I feel like the magic system was kind of glossed over in this installment, and again, I'm sure that will be something that will be explained in the coming sequels, but yeah, I just kind of wish that the magic system would have been explained a bit more. So one of the main selling points about this book is that it has a female-female romance, and and I have read a couple of books with female-female romances, but I never really had an opinion on them. But I have to say, the romance in this book was just so beautiful and organic between Ren and Lei. I loved it so much. It was definitely one of my favorite parts of the book overall. I also really enjoyed reading about the inner workings of the palace, as well as the other paper caste girls who are in the same situation as Lei and their relationships with one another. So there's definitely a big content warning for this book. There are depictions of rape as well as attempted sexual assault, but what really works for this book is that those assaults occur mainly off the page and are just strongly implied. I just think that it works really well for this book because it's just really respectful to the characters, as well as to anyone who reads this book who is a survivor of any kind of sexual assault. Natasha Nyan herself talks about in the author's note that she has been through a sexual assault. So this is own voices in that regard, as well as the Malaysian aspect of this novel. The way that each of the paper caste girls deal with these ongoing assaults is very realistic, and it definitely shows that there's no one way to cope with that kind of trauma, and I really loved that about this book. And I just loved this overall message of finding love and hope and power after undergoing something traumatic like sexual assault. I just have to commend Natasha Nyan for doing that so beautifully in this book. So I wholeheartedly recommend this. As you can tell, I have a ton of thoughts about it, but I just cannot recommend this enough. Okay, so the next 7 books that I want to talk about are all books that I read for the Contemporary-a-thon, which was a readathon that took place between September 23rd and September 29th. I already have a reading vlog dedicated to my experience reading all of these books on my channel already, so I would definitely recommend you guys check that out because I definitely talk about all of these books in detail. So I think in this video I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview of what I thought of these books. So the first book that I read for that is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. This is such an iconic book in the YA genre, and for very good reason. This was inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, and this centers around Star, who witnesses her best friend Khalil getting murdered by a white police officer. This book just brought up so many amazing topics about race in this country and about society in general, and I overall just really enjoyed seeing Star's relationships with all the different people in her life. I definitely gave this 5 stars because it was just that incredible. This is one of those books that I feel like everybody should read, even if you don't really consider yourself to be a reader, although I hope if you are subscribed to my channel that you do like reading to some degree, but definitely put this on top of your TBR lists if you have not already. The next book I read after that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This is an adult contemporary romance. So this story centers around Simon and Emily. Emily moves to this small town in Maryland to essentially help her sister and her niece after her sister was in a very traumatic car accident. And basically Emily gets roped into volunteering with this Renaissance fair that Simon runs. And they immediately have this kind of like annoyed relationship with each other. I wouldn't say hate, but they definitely do not like each other. But what I loved about this book is that because they're in a Renaissance fair, they take on these different characters. And so Simon plays this really attractive pirate and Emily plays this tavern wench, and they end up having a fake relationship in that they're only in a relationship when they are in character at the Renaissance fair, but of course that develops into something more. I also gave this 5 stars. I loved it so much, especially the ending. That's really what put it over the top for me. After that, I read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This centers around Frances and Aled. Basically, Frances is known as a study machine at her school. She is head girl. She gets the best grades. That's really all she's known for. She's not really known for having a personality, but she is obsessed with this podcast called Universe City, and she discovers that Aled, who is this boy that she's known for a while but has never really been that close to, actually created the podcast, and so their friendship starts from there. I overall really enjoyed this. I'm giving this 4 stars. It's a really great book about kind of like finding one's own identity, as well as the realization that college may not be for everyone, and just because you don't go to college doesn't mean that you won't have an amazing life and an amazing career. I can definitely see why so many people loved it, but for me it was just a 4 star, but I definitely still recommend it. After that, I read The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is the companion novel to The Kiss Quotient, which, as all of you know at this point, is a book that I just absolutely adore. This one I ended up giving 4 stars. I definitely enjoyed it, but just not as much as The Kiss Quotient. This one centers around Kai, who is a very minor character in The Kiss Quotient, and essentially his mother goes to Vietnam and gets him a mail order bride, and the plot goes on from there. I really loved the relationship between Kai and Esme throughout, and the ending was just adorable and everything that I needed from this story. So I definitely do recommend this, and I cannot wait for the third book in this series, which is called The Heart Principle, and I think that is coming out next May. So I'm definitely really anticipating that release. After that, I read Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is a very, very smutty romance. Do not let the illustrated cover fool you. It is very smutty. This is about Georgie and Travis. Basically, Georgie is a clown for birthday parties and things like that, but she wants to expand her business into like a major children's party company. And then we have Travis, who is a baseball player who injured his shoulder, and so he can no longer play, but he's on the short list for this baseball game commentator job. And so both of them have reason to go into a fake relationship with each other, but I'm sure, as you can guess, they end up developing a relationship for real. I don't really have a ton to say about this, but I did really enjoy it and I gave it 4 stars. I think if you love a lot of smut, you will really enjoy this. I definitely really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to check out more of Tessa Bailey's books in the future. The next book that I read during the Contemporary-a-thon is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This is a book that centers around 3 main characters. There is Grace, who is actually plus size, but I love that her character is just so much more than that. Grace doesn't even really think about it all that much. And then we have Rosina, who is Mexican and she is queer. And then we have Erin, who has Asperger's syndrome. There's a lot of really, really great representation in this book. And the plot basically centers around how these 3 girls become friends, and they decide to create this organization called the Nowhere Girls to try to get some kind of justice for this girl named Lucy, who was essentially run out of town, I think a couple of years back, because she accused 3 popular guys of gang raping her. So just so you guys know, there is a content warning for sexual assault as well as attempted sexual assault. But yeah, I love this book so much. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts, definitely go check out that Contemporary-a-thon reading vlog, because I discussed this book quite a bit in that video. And the last book that I read for the Contemporary-a-thon is Always Never Yours by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This is kind of a Shakespeare-inspired YA contemporary romance. We center around Megan Harper, and she has dated a few guys in high school, but she has realized that these guys always end up breaking up with her and then immediately finding their one true love after dating her. So she definitely compares herself to Rosalind from Romeo and Juliet. And the plot centers around how Megan really wants to go to this prestigious directing program for college, but in order to be accepted into that program, she has to have an acting credit on her resume. So her high school is doing a production of Romeo and Juliet, and she just assumes that she is going to be someone with little to no lines, but alas, she is cast as Juliet, and she is not happy about that at first. And she ends up meeting this guy Owen, who's an aspiring playwright, and the plot goes on from there. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving this 4 stars. There were a few gripes that I had with it. Mainly, I just feel like there should have been less cheating overall. There was just a lot of cheating happening between different characters, and I just thought it was unnecessary. But I loved the Shakespeare inspiration for this and how Owen and Megan bonded over their love for Shakespeare, and it was overall really cute and just really enjoyable. So I do recommend it if you are looking for a light and fun YA contemporary romance, but just be warned that there's quite a bit of cheating in this. And the very last book that I read in the month of September is Only for Your Touch by Naima Simone. I believe that's how her name is pronounced. This is book 2 in a romance contemporary series. I read book 1, which I think was called Only for a Night, and I read that last month as part of the 24-hour Smuttathon. But this series basically centers around these 3 best friends who, after getting out of the Irish mob, they open up their own sex club, and so each book is their own romance story. So this book centers around Sasha, who is Russian, and then Karen, who is his love interest. And overall, I enjoyed this installment just as much, if not a little bit more, than the first book. These are just really short, smutty romances, so there's really nothing to complain about. I was just entertained the whole time. All right, and that's going to be it for my end of September wrap up, you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you would consider subscribing. Don't forget to click that notification bell button below so that you will be notified every time I upload, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!